आजको दिनको अन्तिम सेसनमा छौँ र भोलि र पर्सि फेरि यहाँ सेसनहरू यसरी नै हल 1 र हल 2 मा हुनेछन्। I would like to request Dhirendra Premarshi sir to welcome our guest with Rudraksha. And the time for the sessions will be 45 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Prajwal, and good afternoon, everybody. This is the last session, and the fact that this is the last session is vindicated by a very thin presence of people in the audience. So I believe that though the number is very low, it's a very qualitative audience that we have in front of us. This is a sort of a very consolidated remark on our part. We have with us Yatish Kumarji, who was also there in the session that we just had. So I think we don't need to introduce him more. Might have a problem. So Yatish ji was introduced in the last session. So let me save time. Yatish ji is an Indian poet, as he was introduced in the last session as well, and we know him. We have Dr. Adhyasa Das, if I'm not wrong with your name and pronunciation. He's a professor at the Indian Institute of Tourism and Travel Management, Bhubaneswar, and a very celebrated poet, writing in many languages, including English. So because poets do not need a lot of introduction, their poetry is what introduces them. Nevertheless, I said this much. The second thing is, we can also make it a multilingual session, because language is never going to be a barrier when it comes to creative writing and expression. So we can speak I can speak some Nepali here, and some Oriya from here, and some Hindi, or any other Indian or Asian language for that matter. The title that we have framed for our session is Flaming Words, Poetry of South Asia. So we'll have some theoretical discussion on what we understand about poetry, what is our conviction about poetry, or the region itself, and then we shall be reading some of our creations again. Kuch nayi kavitaएं आएंगी Yatish ji. So I think it's going to be a very exciting thing. Flaming Words, Poetry of South Asia. So when the framers of this event, this session, thought about this session, they thought poetry is flaming out of something that you have. Is it always flames that we manifest through poetry? Is not it sometimes a very peaceful musing? Every time, is it going to be a flame of the creative zeal you have inside? Is not it sometimes a very tranquil musing of your own? Something that comes from within, something that's a very, very peaceful expression. Should poetry always be a flame-like thing? This is what I want to know. So what is your conviction about what poetry is?
शुक्रिया। मेरे लिए कविता खासकर इस तरह से है कि आपके अंदर, आपके मन के घड़े के अंदर बूंद 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 अनुभव, संवेदनाएं, एक्सपीरियंस, यथार्थ, जितनी भी चीजें हैं वो टपकती रहती हैं। और जैसा मैंने पिछले सत्र में कहा कि एक ईश्वरीय क्षण आता है जब वो प्रस्फुटित होता है, जब वो ब्लॉसम होता है, जब वो मैं अगर वैसे कहूं तो ऑर्गाज्म की तरफ चला जाता है। वो है पोएट्री, जब आप वो परिपक्व पोएट्री है जो एक कविता 10 किताब के बराबर, 10 गद्य के बराबर की बात करती है। वो समुच्च को सर्वाहित करने की बात करती है, वो समुच्च को, सारे जहान को 2 शब्द में निगलने की बात करती है, प्रवाहित करने की बात करती है, संप्रेषित करने की बात करती है, संवाहित करने की बात करती है। तो कविता का इतना ही मतलब मैं समझता हूं कि आप अपने अनुभव को सींचते हैं एक टाइम फ्रेम के अंदर, और वो अनुभव दबाव में सृजन करता है। दबाव में सृजन इस तरह करता है कि जैसे कोई अन्न आप डाल देते हैं, या माँ के गर्भ के अंदर जब बच्चा होता है, दबाव में सृजन उसका होता है, वैसा सृजन है कविता।
That's a wonderful answer. He accepted the idea that it's not always flaming out of some rage that you have housed inside. It's also an expression of tranquility, some sort of philosophical musing, some vision, and some message of truth. That's wonderful. So I come to Adyasa, madam, Dr. Adyasa. What is your understanding of poetry? Why do you write? What is the idea you want to communicate through your poetry?
Thank you very much. It's a beautiful evening, and I have with me accomplished writers of Nepal. And I must say that Nepal is not new to me, because I believe literature builds bridges and breaks down walls. So I have many writer friends, and I think all of you probably are aware about the eminent poet Suman Pokhrel, who has translated some of my poems into Nepali. However, let me start by answering your question. Why do I write poetry? I have no answer. I truly believe poetry is a spontaneous expression. I don't want to confine it within the limits of a definition. Believe me, I have tried. In several lit fests, this is the standard question that is asked: why do you write? And I just cannot answer. I'm still trying. The search is on. But I believe why I write comes out in my poems. It is not something which can be bounded. Can you actually bottle up the ocean? Can anyone try to do that? So I believe what is coming out within me is probably as intense as an ocean. And it can have several manifestations. So when we are talking about flaming, words, and I think you asked, should all poetry be flaming or should it be tranquil as well? I will have a slightly different interpretation of the word flaming. I believe flaming also means igniting. So suppose what I write ignites your mind. That's a very gentle flame, a flame of understanding, a flame of appreciating our cultures. Like if we take India and Nepal, believe me, this is my first visit to Nepal, and all of yesterday I was with my husband at Patan Square, and I felt I was almost walking in a land of mysticism, not very dissimilar from India. A lot of the tantric deities who were there, I felt I was walking the alleys and streets of Kamakhya, the land of Assam. So if the idols and the thoughts of Nepal can ignite my mind, that's also a flame. And believe me, that flame does not burn us up. That is also very calming and cooling. So that probably would be my take. And why I write is, whenever I look out at the environment, when I look at cultures, when I look at people, when I look at gods and goddesses, and when I look within myself, all of this and much more which I can't express makes me write poetry.
That's a very, very candid and, in fact, very clear answer. I want to build on what you said about Nepal and India and connection, this familiarity, and the way we look at each other. So this brings me to the next question about the space called South Asia. When we talk about South Asian poetry, we, the Indians and the Nepali, we inherit the same grand poetic culture coming all the way from Kalidasa through Mahakavi Vidyapati. I think you also do Mahakavi Vidyapati study in your Awadhi and the Indo-Gangetic plain and the thing like that. And the great tradition of Rabindranath Tagore, Kazi Nazrul Islam. If anybody from Bangladesh would have been here, I would have mentioned this. And this great tradition we have inherited. And this great tradition and the master poets have taught us that South Asia is a very different cultural space. It is not just geography with hills and mountains and plain. It is a cultural space that teaches us to be different human beings. What is South Asia to your understanding, to your culture and intuition? आप कैसे देखते हैं साउथ एशिया? ये भूगोल है, ये पहाड़ है, नदियां है, या ये कुछ और है? क्या है आपके लिए साउथ एशिया?
देखिए, क्षेत्र से परे मैं कुछ और बात इसके साथ रखना चाहूंगा कि साहित्य कैसे करवट ले रहा था पूरे एशिया में, और उसमें साउथ एशिया खास है। ये ज्यादा जरूरी है कि मैं जितना जितना नॉलेज, जितना ज्ञान मेरे पास है, उससे मुझे इतना ही समझ में आया है कि हिंदुस्तान में जो हो रहा था लगभग वैसा ही उसी काल में नेपाल में हो रहा था। उतनी ही लड़ाई, उतनी ही जद्दोजहद बांग्लादेश और पाकिस्तान में भी हो रहा था। हम अगर फैज की बात करेंगे, फैज की आत्मकथा को अगर मंचन करेंगे, देखेंगे, तो या फिर हम रविन्द्रनाथ ठाकुर को देखेंगे, या निराला को देखेंगे, या अगर यहाँ पे हम गोपाल दास रिमल को देखेंगे, या परजात को देखेंगे, या चित्रधर हृदय को देखेंगे, या फिर आचार्य जी को देखेंगे, भानुभक्त आचार्य जो जिनके नाम से रामायण पूरा यहाँ चल रहा है, तो वो सेम करवट ले रहा है। अगर छंद से कब आजाद हुआ भारत में कविता, कब आजाद हुई? नेपाल में भी आप देखेंगे 70s में ही, वैसे ही जब मुक्तिबोध वहां आ रहे थे, यहाँ रिमल आजाद करा रहे थे, या भूपी शेरचन दोनों छंद से बाहर लाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे। और वैसे ही पहल जो है, वैसा ही पहल पाकिस्तान में भी हो रहा था। गजल में भी उतने ही एक्सपेरिमेंट हो रहे थे। तो ये मैं इसको क्षेत्रवाद की तरफ से देखता ही नहीं हूँ, मैं रादर इसको पोएट्री के अपने डायनामिक्स, अपने व्याकरण से देखता हूँ, साहित्य के अपने व्याकरण से देखता हूँ कि भले हम अलग अलग सीमाओं में बंधे हुए हैं, लेकिन हमारी धड़कन एक है, हमारे नब्ज एक हैं, क्योंकि साहित्य का मौलिक विज्ञान एक है और हम इससे बाहर नहीं जा सकते हैं। हम अगर ये भी देखें कि हमारे जो रसिया या कम्युनिज्म तरह से रसिया से लिटरेचर हमारे पास लेके आया, जिस तरह से हम एक समय में इंडिया, पाकिस्तान या बांग्लादेश या नेपाल या भूटान, सब जगह, भूटान को थोड़ा सा अलग कर रख सकते हैं हम इस मामले में, सब जगह हमें ये लगने लगा कि हाँ, कम्युनिज्म के हाथ में ही पूरा का पूरा लिटरेचर है। लेकिन लिटरेचर इतना आसान चीज नहीं था, और सब जगह धीरे धीरे ये चीजें बाहर आई, स्वतंत्र, अगर मैं कहूँ तो स्वतंत्र हुई। और आज हम भले अलग अलग, इंडिया में भी हम कहें तो दक्षिण पंथ बोलते हैं, अलग अलग क्षेत्रवाद की बात करते हैं, बट अल्टीमेटली जो साहित्य है या कविता है, वो नथिंग बट व्हाट शी सेड, it is an expression which will come at what time you never know. So I would rather keep myself away from any Kshetravad, whether it is South Asia or Asia. Rather, I'll tell that literature is reinventing itself with time, and let us celebrate the time.
A very popular song came a couple of years, maybe a decade ago. पंछी नदियां पवन के झोंके, कोई सरहद ना इन्हें रोके, सरहद तो इंसानों के लिए है. So that exactly is what I also wanted to fish out as an answer from your mouth, and you did it so well. See, when I read your background, you are from Odisha, and the state of Odisha is very interesting for an outsider reader, examiner like me. Odisha lying midway between the southern Dravidian culture and the northern Bengali culture. Odisha lying midway between the ocean, the sea culture, and the land culture. So Odisha itself being a very rich cultural space with Jagannath Puri and so many, you see, shrines and very religious places. So growing in a rubric of mixed culture, mixed expression, mixed geography, and mixed cultural heritage, how was your poetic self shaped? What influenced you the most out of all these things, geographical, cultural, religious, linguistic factors, to become a poet? What made you a poet in that space?
Thanks for a wonderful question. and for bringing out the unique aspects of the land I belong to. I must also express that I come from a family of literature. My mother is an established writer. She's been translated into several languages. So literature was something I got as a legacy. It's not at all anything I have achieved. I got it in my legacy. But as you rightly said, what influenced me the most was culture. Culture is that one vehicle through which we inherit behavior. And I think you all know that behavior mostly is learned. And writing poetry was a learned behavior for me for many days. Because when I thought I was doing something that my mother was doing, I think all of you will agree that imitation is the mother of invention. So since a very young age, I used to write thinking that, I'm like my mother, I'm doing something my mother does. But then gradually I realized I have a different take than hers on certain matters. And then my poetic shape had an identity of its own. And if you ask me, what is that one single point that influences us? That is nothing but culture. Because when I say culture, I'm talking about a whole host of symbols. We just had a very wonderful answer about the absence of geographical boundaries when we are talking about Southeast Asia. But if I would say that there is only one unification point of the entire Southeast Asia, that is culture. And if we look at our past, if we look at the trading routes that were adopted by Odias, by people from the East who traveled, you will see that that was just a transfer of culture. I have traveled extensively in Southeast Asia as a part of my, since I work for a travel and tourism organization, as a part of my research. And I was, wonderstruck to see typical Odia fairs and festivals, things which were relevant to us, because, the cultural context is very important. So now you may tell me that, but somehow the American poems also look very familiar to us. That is because today the geographical boundaries have totally disappeared thanks to technology. And of course, poetry is something that assimilates as well. It is adaptive and it is assimilative. So today you have a lot of Facebook poetry being written. We should not be decrying it, because that is also an answer to the age, the changing age. So I would say that, I am a proud Odia who writes about the Odia culture while writing about the world culture. I travel the whole world and I try to find out what is it there in the world culture that is familiar to me, that has been given to me in my legacy of being an Odia.
So I have a counter question. I mean, a supplementary question on you particularly. When I browse through your career, your achievements and all, one thing that I came to know about is you are very much inclined towards Eastern religious traditions, the yoga and the tantric thing and all. And this is something not found in many poets also writing from Orient space. We have also read Jayanta Mahapatra and Sitakanta Mahapatra and many of those poetic stalwarts from that area. So your particular inclination towards, like here is a poem on yoga and tantrism, yoga, and this Eastern Saivic culture and all. What linked you with this particular thing?
Yeah, thanks once again for a very interesting question. My research area was on temples. And I think, as somebody in the previous session said, that I think Mr. Kedar Mishra, he said he travels to temples not for the rites and rituals, but to see the iconography. Well, I belong to that category. So my research took me to the temples to find out about the sacred space. What is sacred and profane? What is the meaning of God and goddess to us? Is belief in God psychotherapy? What exactly is it? Why does it pull us to the temple? Why is a 100-year-old lady crying and beating her head on the floor of the stone floor of the temple? What is the power of that idle, silent stone statue? So this was the basis of my research. In the course of this research, I came across a very elusive, forgotten cult of Orissa called the Chaushati Yogini cult. Orissa has the unique distinction of having two very rare ancient temples of the Chaushati Yoginis. However, the Yogini cult is not limited to Orissa. It is spread all over the Orissa, all over the India, as well as in Southeast Asia. And in fact, let me tell you, in my tour, heritage tour of the Patan Square yesterday, I have seen the Saptamatrikas, I have seen the Dasha Mahavidyas, and I have recognized with pleasure, and I think I'm planning a visit to the Vajra Yogini temple day after. So my research continues. But then, what was it about the yoginis that I was fascinated with? The yogini as an empowered woman. In the 6th, 7th century, when these temples were built and the cult was created, there was this empowered woman. You'll be surprised. I don't want to go on about the yoginis, but I'll just give you one example. A very rare Saraswati statue of a yogini who is a combination of a male and a female. I think probably the only statue which is there at the Hirapur temple. Half of her body is a female, she holds a veena. The other half is a male and she's twirling a mustache. So that symbolizes the level of empowerment that women had at that age. And that was my study, that is my study, how the woman of those days is actually a role model for the woman who should be today.
I think you are at the right space right now. Kathmandu being a location of syncretization of so many yogic and tantric cultures from the mountains and the plains and from the Buddhist and the Hindu tradition. So I wish you to spend some more days here, research, and then add up to something so that we'll have another collection from you when we meet next. Sir, Yatish ji, I have a political question. And if I did not ask this question here, I will not have an opportunity to ask to anybody anywhere. In the past, let's say for 10 years to be very precise, India is seemingly becoming more Indian than it was in the past few centuries. Like Indianization of education, Indianization of cultural spaces, Indianization of policies. This thing seems to be taking place in one hand. In the other hand, I can see some artists and poets of affection or some sizable number revolting against this, sort of hardcore Indianization of art and culture and everything. So, Aisa ma'am, we were waiting for you. Please, she is Aisa Jhorna from Amar Sonar Bangla, right? You're from Amar Sonar Bangla? No. So that's why I said Amar Sonar Bangla. So you are welcome. Yes, Satish ji. Maybe I'm wrong in this question. Maybe I'm looking at Indian development, the political, sociological development from a remote location. So anyway, it appears to me that in the past 10, 15 years, there is the state-sponsored tendency to totally Indianize everything, including art, culture, and the way of thinking and education. So what is your comment on whatever I said just now?
सबसे पहले तो जितने लोग यहाँ बचे हुए हैं उनको मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ कि इतने पेशेंटली सुन रहे हैं, है ना। देखिए हर विषय जो है एक समय के साथ मंथन करता है, तो समुद्र मंथन की तरह मैं इसे देखता हूँ। तो समुद्र मंथन हो रहा है, उसमें विष भी निकलेगा और अमृत भी निकलेगा। अभी it's too early to say anything about this, and मैं कवि हूं तो आशावादी रहूंगा हमेशा। और बहुत गैप तो था ही, अगर हम देखें कि आजादी के बाद हम अंग्रेजियत तो छोड़ नहीं पा रहे थे और हम मतलब कंप्यूटर नहीं था लेकिन कट पेस्ट ही कर रहे थे। अगर एक पूरा का पूरा यूथ वापस जाना चाहता है तो जाने में गलतियां भी होंगी, जो मैंने कहा वो होने दीजिए, लेकिन let us wait with a positive pray that something good will come, and I am very hopeful being a poet.
Actually, why I asked this question is there was a time when very celebrated Western authors like Emerson and Thoreau, T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, they derived their poetic inspiration from the East. And this stopped at some point in time, and we started looking at the West for our role models. So this cultural renaissance that I was hinting at was bound to happen. Isko to hona hi tha. So when this happens in India, we in Nepal are also confident that something of our flavor, our soil.
देखिए सारा फेसबुक और एप्पल जो है ना वो इंडिया से ही निकला अल्टीमेटली। दोनों के स्वामी जो हैं वो आए, उत्तराखंड में रहे और जाने के बाद सक्सेसफुल हुए, चाहे स्टीव की बात करें या जो दोनों की बात, ठीक है, इवन माइक्रोसॉफ्ट।
अभी तो क्या है सर, अभी तो चांद पर आए हैं ना, So let's hope that the universe will have a type of unique cultural flavor from the East. The East, after all, is East. So we have with us Aisha Jorna, ma'am. Aisha Jorna is a poet from Bangladesh. After 6 years, she started to write poems on various themes, and she has performed on all sorts of platforms. She has done her masters in Dhaka University in English, followed by MA, and she has 8 books of poetry to her collection. So we were also commemorating Qazi Nazrul Islam in our introductory session. So Bangladesh, to me, is a very, very old civilization and a very new nation state as a country. A
Yeah.
very old civilization
Yes.
and a very new country. So being an heir to a very, very old civilization and a very new country, where do you find yourself today as a poet?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to Kalingo to invite me over here. And I'm very proud to be over here. Actually, first of all, he said that's Sonar Bangla. Rabindranath Tagore is our proud. He's not only for India; he's for all over the country. So Tagore has written the national anthem for India and also Bangladesh. And you see, when we see আমার সোনার বাংলা আমি তোমার চিরদিন তোমার আকাশ তোমার বাতাস আমার প্রাণে ও মায় আমার প্রাণে বাজায় বাঁশি সোনার বাংলা আমি তোমায় ভালোবাসি. So you see, Bangla is a very sweet tone, including all. Bangladesh has a. He asked me the questions that Bangladesh is a very developing country. Yeah, it's a developing country, but there is other things he's working on. That's the things is religion is it's this some sort of it's disturbing. People are mass people. They think they are not Bengali. They think they are majority people. They think they are Muslims, Hindus. These complexes, from the beginning, from 1947. I'm a student of literature, but I'm not a student of history. But as far I saw, that's these the things disturbing the people of whole continent. Even India is developing. I don't think this India is different from the when we talk about Bangla, Calcutta, or Nepal. Actually, I don't differ with other people because most of my friends, they are Bangladeshi peoples are in America, Canada, Australia. Even from Odisha, there is a lady, Sharita Jenaboni. She's living in Austria. So people, they are not living in the same place. So they are globally working there with their literature. And Bangladesh also working. But one thing is disturbing right now. Bangladesh has developed a lot. Yeah. We have lots of people. We have a lots of tall buildings. But I'm mentally disturbed. I'm born and brought up in Dhaka. And, I just walked through the city when I was a student. Now I can't work in the city. So what's the sort of things is disturbing now? That's things is disturbing. Development is not connecting with the mind. It's my question because when I was thinking this, I'm feeling better over here rather than my country. Why? What's for? Because people thinks it's like what I can't say explain in the audience. Actually, it will be different when the India has gone to moon. I just give a post on the Facebook, and I have a lot of followers, 3,000 followers.
Oh, that's great.
So when I saw that I give a post on Chandra Vision, they told India, why you are praising about India? I said, it's not different, Bangladesh and we are the Bengali people. We are the Bengalis. So that dividation is still is going
So
on.
I got you, man. I got you. We don't have geographical division in our herds. It is the culture, the commonality that matters.
Yes.
So I'll come back to you after some time. For your information, the Charyapada, the first manuscript of Charyapada was
Charyapada.
discovered in Kathmandu.
Yeah,
So this
Kathmandu.
connects Dhaka with Kathmandu. Let me come back to other poets.
Yes.
Let's have some poetry recitation this time.
Yes.
So starting with Madam Adhyasa, we want to hear some of your poems, with the short one, and we'll go round and round like this.
Okay, as I have told you, this book of mine is a book I have written on the Chaushati Yoginis, 64 women who are present in a temple, and they are forgotten now. They were in the focus in attention from the 8th century to the 11th century. With the rise of the Brahminical supremacy, the cult was forgotten. I don't want to get into that. But this is for one of the most important goddesses of the Yogini cult, Chandika. The name of my poem is Chandika's Song. I am Chandika, the Yogini. I am Chandika, the Yogini, the wind of bygone eras, the fire of the future. Alone in this deserted temple, I see the sea flowing in the sky. Alone in this deserted temple, I see the sea flowing in the sky, and the sky submerged in the recesses of the sea. The seagulls of my youth spiral up to the clouds as my age takes a stroll on the waves of a timeless sea. The gods of the sea and sky urge me on. The journey that has begun must end. The journey that has begun must end. I'm a flame of intense, ancient nostalgia, masculine yet feminine, creator yet created. The sunset will take me home, I know. The sunset will take me home into the luxury of oblivion. But before that, let me be the murmur of the sea, the sigh of misunderstood legends and myths. Let me mourn for the war-ravaged world and wonder at the humanity of humble gestures. The sunset will take me home, I know, but I have already died before. With all those who have died around the world, I have already died before. The final journey will just be going away for a long vacation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We apologize for a blunder that we made in the beginning in the announcement of names. We also have with us Chamil Sanjiva, who has come all the way from Sri Lanka. So we are really apologetic of what happened in the beginning. So this was not intentional. Our announcer announced the name and we didn't see you around. So either you were at the back or means out of this pavilion. Anyway, so I humbly apologize from the side of us. We finally have you on board and we shall have a wonderful discussion with you. So let's welcome our friend from Sri Lanka, Sanjiva. I shall come to you. Sir, आपकी दो कविताएं हो जाए छोटी-छोटी.
चलिए छोटी सी दो कविताएं सुनाता हूँ. वैसे पिछले सत्र में मैंने कोई प्रेम कविता नहीं सुनाई थी और 3 दिनों में पत्नी साथ में ही है तो बेहतर है कि प्रेम कविता सुनाई दूं. तो शीर्षक है सिकुड़ना. आंखों में शोले हैं और मन में संगीत. आंखों में शोले हैं और मन में संगीत. आग को इतने सुर में पहले कभी नहीं देखा. वो जो अटैची में एक ताला होता है उसका कोई नाम नहीं मिल रहा था तो मैंने उसका नाम रख दिया चकरघन्नी. तो चकरघन्नी तालों की भाषा कभी समझ नहीं आई. मैंने उसकी सेटिंग हमेशा 0-0 रखी. मेरी हथेली बड़ी उसकी छोटी. मेरी हथेली बड़ी उसकी छोटी. दोनों हथेलियां ज्यादा देर साथ नहीं रह पाती. मैंने अपनी हथेली मुट्ठी में बदल उसकी तलहत्ती में छिपा दी. अब दोनों एक हैं. सिकुड़ना प्रेम का सबसे सुंदर विस्तार है। और एक और छोटी प्रेम कविता ही सुना के खत्म करूंगा अपना। इसका शीर्षक है इसका शीर्षक है तुम तक। सुख है तुमको देखना, सुख है तुमको देखना, और दुख है नजर का एक कोण बन जाना। सुख है तुमको देखना और दुख है नजर का एक कोण बन जाना। दुख अगर टोकरी भर जाड़ा है तो सुख हमारे साथ में उपजी बोरसी भर आग। समंदर के झाग सा है दुख, समंदर के झाग सा है दुख, जबकि सुख है उसी लहरों का हर बार लौट आना। दुख है नहीं पाना, दुख है नहीं पाना चित्त का उखड़ जाना। सुख है कच्ची हल्दी सा उखड़ कर भी हर बार उगाना, लेप बच जाना। दुख है दूध की तरह उफन जाना, दुख है दूध की तरह उफन जाना, और सुख है तब भी तुम्हारा हर बार मुस्कुराना। बेगाटेला बचपन में खेलते थे हम लोग, कीलों वाले के अंदर जो है बॉल रोटेट करता था। तो बेगाटेला की गोली हूं मैं और कीलों वाली आखिरी सुराख तुम। दुख है बारहा टकराना, दुख है बारहा टकराना, जबकि सुख है बावजूद इसके हर बार तुम तक पहुंच पाना। शुक्रिया।
Thank you. Your poems are short, sharp, and epigrammatic. So please maintain this. Ma'am, aapse, we want to hear a poem from you, and I'll come back to him for a longer
Yes.
engagement here. One poem,
One in English. Yes. Okay.
or maybe some Bangla flavor also.
Actually, I didn't
Course,
bring
it's a
my
multilingual,
Bang-
multilingual
I thought
audience.
nobody will understand Bangla. That's why I didn't bring it. Hey, you understand? Okay, okay. But I'll recite it from English. Okay. Actually, my poem has already been translated in different anthologies. It's in, from Singapore, Antonym, 8 poems, and there is another poem, Voices on Violence Against Women. Here is it's from Dholi, the South Asian poetry. This one is collection from Dhuli publications, and my other poets from London, England, and other Nepal also. And actually, when the Corona time, I started to write, in English. I tried to explore in English. So I see that it's a communicative language. But when I was only writing in Bangla, in Bangladesh, I'm already a known poet in Calcutta also. But when I started to write in English, and the people, started to appreciate, and they tried to see, oh, you can write, you just send your poems, and we'll translate. This is the way. Then, we had a different 100 poets of love poem. That one also is from England, yeah. Okay, so I'm reading a poetry from. I don't mention any love poem or whatever is. I am some anarchist, I'm not a very. You are a very love person for your wife. I can say that I love my husband. I can say that because I don't have that much affection for anything. From my beginning, I have some, my poetry is anarchist. I'm different type of anarchist. Some s- mm, hold. So I'm reading that omnibus owl. Okay. I shall read 2 poem. That is one is chastity, and another one is wait two poem. First one is ominous owl. Hasn't been possible in all the time to get crude of sorrow and moonless night. Your associations suspect. In a single life, how much longer can one keep building shelters like columns of ants, or except a wind, driving sound, or watery detachment, you cringe from the fate of anonymous letters, or remain locked up in the hot, suffocating dark, tangling like bats and writing all the stories of being irresistible. This poem has been translated by Roger Chaudhary. He is from Calcutta, and he writes in English. He's a very good, renowned novelist. I think you know his name. And there is another poetry I would like, and then I'll be finished. Chastity. This one also translated in French also. You know, my poetry has been going to be published in a French journal. Thank you. Already two has been translated in French. Philippe Benoit. He's a lover of Tosle Nasreen. Today I have seen that he have comments on my post, so I'm grateful. You know, thank you. And there's another Frenchman. His name is Bernard. Manopio Boss. He's doing my translating my poem. Today I told him that I'm attending to Nepal. And I like Nepal because my philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, I like most, you know. So actually there is the nothing difference, you know, religion. These are people are doing that. So religion is, I don't like, you know, I like people. I love people. I like culture. So Buddhism tells us you have to ask your soul. No, isn't it? So you were talking about Georgia.
Please, ma'am,
Yes.
poem.
And then there was another thing I'm telling about chastity. Amongst countless people alive with folded legs and arms. Come on, one comes another. They gauze out my eyes. From eyelid sockets, blood flows. Someone tears out my nose, looking for the nose ring. Someone comes for my chastity. Someone for the shell bangles and vermilion. Looking for the vermilion streaks, they peel off the skin of my head. When the bangle breaks, the bones of my hand get exposed. Still, I'm like stone, lying like a crumbed little dot, slashed by many knives. Mother claps me tightly to her chest and says, "My girl, come to my bosom. Let me hold you in my arms again." Then, right then, I wake up from the stony slumber, lie curling into mother's bosom. To ease my death, mother sings a lullaby. The song drifts over the clear water of the river, where blood drips on endlessly from the tree of death. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
I'm
Sir,
passing it
finally,
soon.
I want to turn to Sanjeeva. Sanjeeva, first of all, welcome to Nepal.
Thank you very much.
You are among those who have traveled the farthest distance to be here. It must be a very painstaking journey. Nevertheless, you are here. We know Sri Lanka from a literary perspective after reading master writers like Michael Ondaatje. And of
Yeah.
late, Snehan Karunatilak has
Yeah.
brought Sri Lanka to a great fame. And very incidentally, only 2 days ago, the paper I edit, Sahitya Post English, had published an interview of Snehan Karunatilaka. And when we look at Sri Lankan literature like this, Sri Lanka has its own unique flavor in one direction, and a continued presence of Buddhist message in another thing. So when I look at all this cosmos of Sri Lankan writing, where do you find yourself? What are you doing, and what are your fellow poets doing in Sri Lanka? Briefly, please.
Yeah, first of all, I should thank the Surya Nepal Kathmandu Literature Festival Organization Committee to inviting me represent the Sri Lanka, and it's a great honor to present here. And as you mentioned, when you consider the Sri Lankan culture festival about the literature and go for the poetry, it's more related to Nepal because we observe Buddhism and mainly our culture based on the Buddhist culture. So the all over the 2500 history. And then when the King Dharmashoka, it's also related to here about the Kalinga, sent his son and daughter to Sri Lanka with the Buddhism. And since then, we mainly developed based on the Buddhist culture. And so we had the mixture of it's like Pali, Sanskrit, Hindu, and all the words with our Sinhala language. And we believe that from the Aryan language from the India, and it developed. So when we consider about the Sri Lankan the literature and the poetry, again, we had the one aspect, we had the religious related poetries are there, mainly the religious related poetries, and we had called the Sandesh or the letters. Initially, when there's some incidents happen in the Sri Lanka in about just 400-500 years ago, that time, the Mahanayaka Theras, there are the main poetry come from the religious, again the Buddhist, the monk leaders. They have a great knowledge about the literature, and our literature basically developed among the temples. So that is how the way. And then after that, they developed the universities like in here, the Rabindranath Tagore University like that in India. So like that, we initially aspect the academic aspect to the Buddhism religious literatures and the poems. And so we had 1,000 poems, 2,000 poem literatures, as I mentioned, when about our kings, when they want to send some message to the public, or when some people want to send some message to kings, these monks send it in a words way like that way. It's related to the nowadays we use messenger and WhatsApp messages. So like that way, those monks has written 1,000 poems, 2,000 poems, that message to the kings of the Sri Lanka, but it's written in the very the literature way. It's like one thing I can say that one monk sending a message through a pigeon to king. So he described all the path, the road maps from the one city where the pigeon start his journey to the end of, it's like a Jaffna, the northern part. So he described every city on that, every city in poem. He said the pigeon, you travel to this city, it's like this way. And he described about the city culture like that way. So 1,000 poems, 2,000 poems like that way. So it's a base, with the poems that we found in our ancient history. And when after that, when the colonial area comes, so there's a second stage happen, and when the academics they learn English and the English literature, and then they have learned about the Shakespeare and when they acquired about the English knowledge. So there are second generation, they had the adaptation from the English literature and writing it. And then comes the third level, as you mentioned about the present, who acquired the Booker's Prize, and like that, Shahan, and also there are several other novels there. And when there's a freestyles develop, so we had the one with the rhythm pattern poems are there, another one is a non-rhythm pattern poems are there. So I'll give the one or two examples from the I will read in my mind, because when I got this topic when I came to Nepal, so don't worry. So one, our main known poets is Mahagama Sekara. Maybe if you know, read it. He's a artist, dancer, as well as a poem, and as well as his actor. Now he has passed away. So he, because the majority of time our poets had come from the third class, that means from the very rural areas, and so they know the very difficult life pattern, how they have to bear the society. So sometimes they are not accepted by the second level, third level people in the country. So they suffer a lot. And when they suffer, when they don't have any way to express their way, they have written their poems. One poem they mentioned, I said, "Wada ari ada dinama nivasata yana kala dumriye mata hamu vu me ticket patin ma ada dina me liyana kawiya මෙහි සිටින බොහෝ දෙනෙකුට නොතේරෙන බව දනිමි. එහෙත් ලෝකය වඩා ලස්සන වූ දිනක මා අද දින මේ කියන දෙය ඔබ තේරුම් ගනු ඇත. It mentioned, he said that I am traveling with the third class in a train from office to my home, and I don't have any papers with my pocket. So I had only the train ticket. So I am writing this poem, the backside of the train ticket, and I explain the reality of the modern society we face in a way. We don't have the more rich life pattern. But I want to change this, the third class people, or the poorest people of my country, to the better people. But I know most will not accept what I am writing today. But I know definitely when the world is more fair to all will accept my words one day. So it mentioned about the reality of way. So then there's another poem, this by the Professor Sunil Aryaratna, is again the well-renowned professor from Sri Lanka, is still there. He's a film director and was there. He described about the love, romantic, and the sex. So he mentioned it like that way. ප්‍රේමය නම් රාගයෙන් තොර සඳ එළියසේ අචින්ත්‍යයි පාරදෘශ්‍යයි ඔබයි රම්‍ය සඳ කිරණ ගණාන්ධකාරේ මට එළිය දුන්නු සඳ නුඹයි ඔබෙන් මග අසාගෙන මා මේ ගමන් මග යන්නෙමි රුවල් ඉරී ගිය නෞකාවේ නියමුවා ඔබයි. So she mentioned that it's like that way. We all young first should accept the romantic love rather than sex. And we believe the romantic and real affectionation is far more noble than the first sight and having for the sex. And you are the one who show me the road. So you showed me the road past. Now you are living with me present, and you will guide me to the future. So you are the captain of the sail in the ship. When all the reckons happen in the ship, but still you try to save me to the seashore. That is what I meant by the love. So he described that way. The purity should be the romantic manner. And when I met my real love, it changed my past, it changed my present, and I believe that it will change my future. And that this affection, this romantic bond will guide me to be the best person in my life. So I think, thank you very much. So I think
Thank you. This means Sri Lanka has retained that romantic cult of poetry even today. That's a very encouraging thing, because we don't have time and it's already dark, and we should be really thankful to this patient audience who still is bearing with us. Thank you very much. We could not have a very, very comprehensive discussion because of time constraint. I know that many things can be discussed out here. Thank you, Adyasa ma'am, sir, Satish Kumar sir. I thank you very much. Yatish. And Aisa Jorna ma'am, all the way from Dhaka, and Sanjiva from Sri Lanka. It was a wonderful session. In fact, poetry is something interminable. We can talk on and on and on and on and on. We can never finish. So towards the end, we all share our thankfulness to you all. We'll have a short photo session, right? And then we shall go home. Thank you. It was so nice.
I would also like to thank Mahesh Podiwal for excellent hosting. And I think the questions were so brilliant that they brought out the best in all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. हामीले भर्खरै फ्लेमिङ वर्ड्स पोइट्री अफ साउथ एसिया सेसन सकाएका छौँ. यसमा हुनुहुन्थ्यो आदेशा दास, यतीश कुमार, समेल, सञ्जीवा एन्ड आयशा. यसको मोडरेटरको रूपमा हुनुहुन्थ्यो महेश पौडेल. र यो कार्यक्रमको फोटो सेसन सँगसँगै आजको पहिलो दिनको सबै सत्रहरू यही समापन भएको घोषणा गर्दछु. र हामी भोलि फेरि यही ठाउँमा पुनः उपस्थित हुनेछौँ. शुभ सन्ध्या, शुभरात्रि. र हाम्रो अबको सेसन हल 1 मा हुनेछ. त्यहाँ चाहिँ भूमि सुत, द डटर अफ अर्थ, स्टोरी अफ सीता, डान्स पर्फर्मेन्स बाई पद्मश्री अरुणा मोहन्ती, उहाँको पर्फर्मेन्स हुँदैछ. त्यस पछाडि आजका हाम्रा सबै सेसनहरू सकिनेछन्. शुभरात्रि, शुभ सन्ध्या, धन्यवाद, नमस्कार.